I once overheard you saying at church that you tend to look inward before looking outward. What did you mean by that? Sometimes you have people who, uh, who for whatever reason, whether they're, I don't know if it's like a protection of ego or their, shame or something of that nature, they tend to want to point the finger at everybody else, um, or they want to find excuses externally for the reasons why they are unhappy, or the reason why they do bad things, or for the reason why certain things have happened to them. And like me personally, I do the inverse. I am not necessarily, um, and maybe to my detriment, really. I mean, maybe too much. I tend to look inward, but I am not interested necessarily in protecting my ego per se. Like I want to know what the actual problem is, right? So because you need to know what the actual problem is to solve it, and so you've got to look at every avenue, right? When you've got an issue, look at every angle. Maybe I'm too analytical, but that's how I look at it. And there's always a possibility in any issue, whether it's an issue with, you know, the way you're feeling, or the way that maybe a relationship, or maybe the way you're being treated at work, or maybe you're having an issue with your parents or your kids or your significant other or whatever. There's always a chance that I am the problem, right? And if you're not willing to do that self-reflection, as some people just apparently won't, and you run into a situation where you are actually the problem, it will never get solved. And the funny thing is, quite frankly, in my own life, like I see a lot of people, uh, and I'm not judging them necessarily by saying this. I'm just saying it's just something I observe. I see a lot of people who keep having the same problem happen over and over and over. Oh, I can't find the right person. Oh, I'm having an issue with this friend or that friend. My parents have cut me off, or my children won't talk to me. And at what point, when this stuff like it keeps happening to you, do you look inward and say, is the common denominator in this issue me? Right. And so I had a professor of psychology one time say this. He was sharing a experience about issues he was having with his daughter. And he said, so what I do is I make an assessment and I look at it and I go, okay, so, here are all my kids and I'm having this problem with this one kid. And go, okay, so like, do I have this issue with the other kids? No. Do I have this issue with any of the other important relationships in my life? No. Does this person have similar issues with other people in their life? Yes. Okay, there's the common denominator. And and so if I look at things and I go, okay, so and it's hard. It's hard. That doesn't mean necessarily if you identify that you are the problem, that means the change is going to happen immediately, right? But like at the same time, when you look at it and go, okay, so I keep having the same issue. So if I'm having the same issue, at what point do I look at it and say it's me? Right. And so I try to do that assessment. And like I said, that is not to say, you asked the question, what do I mean by that? Is I tend to do the self-assessment first before looking at the external, uh, And now that does, I would say, it does result in a little bit of like, I don't want to say self-loathing, but it can, if you let that run too far, it can result in you feeling a lot worse about yourself than you should, and being a little too hard on yourself. We're our own worst enemies. At least I am when it comes to this stuff. But anyhow, that's what I meant. So hopefully That clarifies it for you. And if you wanted to talk to me, people who ask questions like that, they have more, they tend to have more questions. Feel free. You can always stop me at church and talk to me about it. And understand, I'm not saying I think I can help. I can just explain a little bit more. I can just explain a little bit more how I'm feeling.